And the bikes that we've been most, I guess, engaged with, you being a current Africa Twin owner, are the two updates to the Africa Twins, so the base model and the Adventure Sports. Now, first impressions, what we're thinking of the looks, they've done a little bit of an update. It's a little bit more edgy, I'd say.
Yeah, it's not a huge leap forward, even from mine, actually. So mine's the 2016. I think it's very similar to it. It is an improvement, it is a tweak, but I don't think it looked particularly dated, so they haven't changed it. Haven't thrown it out completely.
Well, it's always been such a good-looking adventure bike, hasn't it, that it's not really needed like a big overhaul. It's like they just tweak the headlight, they just tweak the bodywork, and even the paint jobs. There's always a black one, then there's a red, white, and blue one, and then there's a white, blue, and red one, and they just tweak them and evolve them, and they still look absolutely brilliant. One thing you said is you like the look of the new tubeless spoke rims on the...
I do. That looks really good in the flesh. There is, which one's got the smaller wheel on it as well?
The Adventure Sports.
Yeah. So it's not that noticeable, I've got to be honest. It still looks okay and it still looks appropriate. In the photos, I think I said, or made a bigger deal about it, sort of looking a little bit out of place.
Yeah.
But I think it looks okay.
Realistically, if you're road riding, I think that's going to feel quite a bit better as well.
Definitely that, yeah.
The only thing that I pointed out in our walk around of the stand on the main channel is now the Adventure Sports, in the UK anyway, I think it varies by market. You can only get it with DCT. We discussed this recently. But also you can only get it with the electronic suspension. And so that means really the only Adventure Sports you can buy in the UK is fully maxed out in terms of like the big choices of spec. And so that means the starting price now, mate, is, have you seen that?
Oh, yeah.
17,599, which really puts it right up there with like a GS, a Multistrada V4, a Tiger 1200 in their fancy specs as well. And so the question is, I mean, can you see anyone paying 17.5 for a 100 horsepower bike?
Maybe not, but I think they should look at it, but I get that the other bikes might have the edge.
Why should they look at it?
Well, as an owner of it, I had somebody looking at mine recently, right? And they were like, oh, they're still holding their value, and I don't get why. And I was like, well, then you're never going to buy one. If you don't get it, it's not something someone can talk you round on. If you walk into a Honda dealership, they're not going to be able to talk you round. If you're just basing it off the horsepower and everything else, as we know, that's not the full story, right? 100 horsepower is fine.
Yeah.
I don't feel lacking with that at all, but with some people, they just want, you feel like you're getting less for the money.
So what you're saying is this is the actual thinking man's adventure bike.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Rather than the spec sheet sort of magpie who sees a high power number and just goes with that.
Spec sheet magpie, yes, that's the term I'm going to go with. I mean, there is no wrong answer. Honestly, those bikes are great as well, so I get why you would want to go for that as well, but personally, I still think for me, this has got a place in my heart, obviously because I've owned one as well. I know how good they are. I have ridden others. I just really like an Africa Twin.
I would say, in my experience as well, it is a bike that maybe outperforms what it looks like on the spec sheet.
100% that.
There's so much torque. It's such a satisfying engine as well.
Yes, yeah. It also just feels a bit more cheeky to me.
Yeah.
From the other ones that I've ridden, it feels a bit more raucous, especially if you stick on an aftermarket exhaust on it and you get a nice snarl out of the engine. They just feel a bit cheeky, a bit more raw.
They are so good off-road as well. I think that's one of the reasons people like them. Perhaps that detracts a little bit on this, but maybe with the price now, 17.5 grand, you're less likely to take it off-road where it might get damaged anyway. Come on, you got to be deep pockets if you're going to be doing that. But it has to be said, the base bike, you can still pick that up in a fairly basic spec, and that now comes in at still around 13 grand, I think it starts, with a manual transmission and without the electronic suspension. But it's got those nice little bits, like we say, bigger windscreen. It's adjustable now. Is yours fixed?
Mine was fixed, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a big deal. And you've got the tubeless wheels, which I don't know about you, but I'd much rather have those on any bike pretty much. So much easier to repair. Fantastic looking. That's probably one of my favorite looking adventure bikes at the show and outside of the show. The base spec now with the spoke wheels laced to the edges and that particular red, black, white and blue.
It's nice.
Beautiful.